There is a Muslim spinster crisis. Basically, a lot of professional Muslim women who are unable to find the right spouse. And not only is there a marriage crisis, but it seems that we are now struggling to find the right spouse. Maybe our expectations are too high. Maybe we are too fussy. But there is a genuine crisis. It's my great honor and pleasure to welcome Ghazala Salim, who is not only a professional matchmaker, but also an author who has written 2 books, Harmony in Matrimony and Matchmaking Mastery. And she's going to be talking about her experiences and the bigger, wider problems that we are facing in the Muslim community. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Welcome to our program today, and it's a fascinating topic we're going to be talking about today.
Most definitely it is, yes.
No doubt, we can sit here for hours and hours talking about this, but unfortunately time does not permit us to do so. So we're going to touch on the main issues which we are facing. And how long have you been a professional matchmaker?
So professionally, I've been matchmaking for just over 4.5 years.
Yeah.
So my background was in teaching, in education. Then that led me, during COVID, I decided to do a coaching qualification, and relationship coaching was something that I was quite interested in because of not just my own personal struggles that I previously had, but also within the community I can see that people are struggling either to find a compatible match, or when they are in a relationship, just maintaining that relationship with the husband and wife, understanding what relationship is all about. So, so professionally I've been a matchmaker and relationship coach for 4.5 years now.
But you've been matchmaking for a lot longer time than that, haven't you?
Yeah, I think that was something that I always was quite good at. I think I'd had the skill to identify who would be a good match with each other. So, it's been, I think the first match I did, they would be celebrating their 29th wedding anniversary at the end of this month.
There's a lot of people out there, what we call rishta aunties out there, who are unofficially, shall I say, matchmaking and pairing people up all the time. But you've obviously taken this to the next level, where you're a published author as well. Yeah. You do matrimonial events. So we want to really touch upon what are the biggest... And we know there's a crisis out there. And I mentioned at the introduction that there's a Muslim spinster crisis.
Yes.
Would you say it's true that there's a lot more professional, maybe not necessarily professional, but just a lot of females out there who are struggling to find a spouse more than the males?
Yeah, I think statistically there's more females than males, so the ratio of females is much greater than the male population. And this is one issue that we have. But also there's a growth, the trends are showing that there's a growth in individualism, where females are getting highly educated, they're becoming very, very independent, they have their own finances. So for them to select somebody for marriage, their requirements are quite high, and their expectations of a husband are quite high as well, as in who he should be and what he should provide, and what, where their freedom will come in. They want somebody who's living independently, has his own house, is going to be the provider, whether they earn their own money. They don't want that to be a contribution towards the house. If they're looking for a husband, then he should be responsible. Islamically, we know that as well. But I think the whole dynamics of things, they're highly educated now. The majority of the girls that I have on my books are very highly educated: doctors, dentists, accountants, engineers, investment bankers, you have it. They've got those qualifications and skills. And I think their mindset is quite different now to then just think that I'm going to become a wife and go and sort of cook and clean and look after children. It's not really something that they were brought up to do. Their parents brought them up to become professionals, to become independent. And being a wife, they feel that they will be losing that independence. So individualism is definitely one of the main factors that's causing people not to, make that big commitment of marriage.
You're saying individualism, for what you just read out or spoke about, it seems like something straight out of a narcissistic manual. It's all about me, 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 me.
Yeah.
What is that professional lady bringing to the table for the man then?
So I think it's vice versa. You know, the women want to see what the man is also bringing for them as well to the table. So she feels that the woman, if when I speak to my clients and I ask them what they're actually looking for, they said everybody that they've so far met through their journey have not been as educated as them. They've not been having the same mindset as them.
Let's just pause on that for a moment.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that? So if just the man is not as educated as you, does that automatically disqualify him as a good spouse and a suitable match? I mean, why
Definitely
does he
not,
necessarily
because that-
have to be more educated?
Definitely not, you know, because at the end of the day, that's not going to make your marriage a success. But people do look at these things, and I think a lot of the times the parents of the girls have also, you know, been telling them,
Stipulated that.
yeah, that, you know, you're educated, and this has also been sort of embedded within the girls that, you know, you're going to get a good education, you're going to go to university, you're going to have a good career. This will give you the stability, the financial stability as well, and you're going to get a good husband. But when they see that somebody's not as empowered as them, for a woman, it's important, and for an empowered woman, it's important that her husband is, you know, more empowered than her, you know, that he's got more control of things than her. So when she feels that he's not, then she feels who's wearing the pants here, who's the actual you know, person who's putting the food on the table, who's the person who's, you know,
So if you said
breadwinner.
if the woman is earning more than the man, or she's more educated, do you think that's already setting that marriage up for failure because the dynamics are the opposite?
I think for a woman, if she's a strong woman, if she's empowered, she won't be able to get on with a weaker guy. You know, she won't be able to survive with somebody who doesn't have her mindset. And for a man, she wants in a man to be stronger than her. Yes, okay, marriages may survive, but the man might feel quite inferior as well if he's married to a woman who's stronger than him. So he might not feel like a man. Some people might like that, some men might like that, but majority of the women won't like that, you know, and they don't like that. And that's the reason they've been struggling to find that ideal person, you know, that they want. This is something that is evident through many, you know, data that we've got, that women are just delaying marriage because they don't want to make that commitment, trying to find the right person. So they might start searching at the age of 25, 26, but by the time they're 35, they still haven't found that person, and then they start becoming desperate that we really need to find somebody here because.
But at that stage, they start lowering their standards.
Yeah, so the biological clock is ticking, and even a 40-year-old is probably looking for somebody who's 33 that can then have children, you know, they could possibly have. It doesn't mean that if you're 35, you're not going to have children. We know within our own religion, you know, our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, they married a lady who was, you know, 40 plus, and she had children, you know. So I always say this to my clients that, you know, not to sort of, but unfortunately, the guys, now let's talk, when we're talking about the guys,
Just
they don't want to.
Before you touch upon that, just wanted to mention on that example that you quoted of the beloved messenger Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam marrying Hazrat Khadija radiyallahu anha was an example that is set for us.
Yes.
For generations later, that you should, there's nothing wrong with marrying a woman older than you.
Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with marrying a widow.
Yeah.
Right? Even today, culturally, we do see people frown upon, you know, if the lady is older than the man, that there's culturally we frown upon that, and especially if widows sometimes are not given that second chance in life for marriage.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Islam teaches us, and you're absolutely right, that look, if the Prophet, you know, the most beloved in this world was, you know, took the steps of marrying a widow, she had children, you know, she was, all these things are a lesson for us. But unfortunately, when you speak to people and say, okay, she's a couple of years older than you, and they just won't actually go for it. And there's a huge pool of females that are 35 plus, never been married before, and they kind of like are losing hope now. And I always, motivate them, because we do coaching as well, to say that, have faith in Allah, have faith that you're an individual that is going to be married to somebody who's the right person for you. The weight is going to be.
So they naturally getting depressed.
It is depressing, because loneliness is a depressing factor. There's a lot of health issues that come with loneliness, and people do need to, first of all, look at their expectations, see how realistic they are, and then maybe look at their approach to the whole of this matchmaking process. Everything's changed from what it used to be before. People used to say, this is somebody that we're going to get you married to. There was no questions asked, and people just used to get married. Yeah, but they've seen that those marriages may have struggled. And they then, that generation now growing up saying, we want something different for our children.
Yeah, but that's not to say that the person that they choose on their own accord outside of their parents' choice, then necessarily is going to be a more successful marriage.
Yeah.
Because a lot of love marriages fail.
They do.
And I often say the reason why they fail is that no matter how many times you meet somebody, maybe it could be a colleague at work, maybe it's somebody you've met on the internet, however many times you meet each other, I think both people are wearing a mask. And it could be a mask of deception, where you don't know the real person until you start living with them.
Yeah.
And this is one of the biggest factors that people need to take into account. That reason why previous marriages were successful is because the parents were able to do the research, and they were able to qualify the spouse for their child. Let's say it is for a daughter or for a son as well. They can see she is such a daughter. We know the family. We know the background. Whereas you find somebody on the internet, you don't necessarily know their family history or their background. You may end up marrying a serial killer. I know it's a bit of an exaggeration, but it could be somebody, not what you expected.
Absolutely, yeah.
And a lot of things have changed also, because people are no longer marrying within the families. They're not going back home necessarily to find a spouse.
That's definitely not happening.
Is that finished now?
Yeah, definitely not. I think, people have totally moved away from the family marriages, and definitely moving away from going to Pakistan or India or wherever they may be belonging to go and get a spouse from there.
What's
because
the main
mindset,
reason for that? Mindset, you said.
The mindset, they've seen that, people that come over from Pakistan, if it's a guy that comes over from Pakistan, he's more inclined to send money back home, and then that means that, the girl might be struggling financially. She doesn't, she's deprived of certain things. So it's just not something that they're interested in, to be honest with you. And there's no need for that, because there's so much population here now. There's third, fourth generation people within their own community, that they've got enough to choose from. They don't need to go back and go and marry from Pakistan, and also or whichever their home country is. And they do also feel that people have, when they come from over there, they have their own agenda. They're not really interested in marriage. They're just here to make money and send money back home. But you mentioned earlier also about, you mentioned that people change, people show up in a different way when you first see them. You don't see the real person. Yeah. But also, yes, you don't, because people can't
see
feel
somebody.
relaxed.
You can have 20 candle-lit romantic dinners with somebody, but you still won't see the real true person.
You never will. And people evolve. You might be married to somebody who's, ticks all the boxes that you have, but an event in your life will change that person, and that could be a time where a child comes along. People change, and if people say that they're still the same, we evolve as humans. We evolve, we change.
What you've mentioned there is so important that many people fail to grasp or even comprehend that during the course of a marriage, that it's an evolutionary relationship where you may it's a cruel example, but you may have found a spouse, either vice versa, whichever way, who's so beautiful, who's so handsome, but they may no longer, that may have been your main reason to get married to that person, but fast forward 10 years later, that same spouse may be, weighing double the size of what they were before. They've lost their good looks. So what do you do in that instance?
Absolutely, because people change. So, what is it that's really important to you? it might, in that marriage, it might not last. So people have to have that mindset that, these things, okay, when you got married, you looked in a certain way, or the characteristics of that person were in a certain way, or his mindset was in a certain way. But over time, because of different events or different things that have happened in your life, things change. So
one spouse may become more religious than the other
absolutely,
during the course of the
absolutely.
marriage.
And so and people might be religious at the beginning,
Yeah.
and they might turn against religion for some reason.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
then but you married them because they were practicing, or they were reading the namaz, or they had their faith, and now they've completely changed. So these things people have to take into account, because we're humans beings. We're born with free spirit. We're born with that thing that we can change, and yet people will show up because they want to show the best version of themselves, especially when they want to get married.
Yeah.
They're not going to show their evil
True
side or
nature,
their
yeah.
true nature or anything, and also because within Islam, there's no dating, there's no living together
Yeah,
before
but that
marriage.
doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
No, it does happen. Obviously, we know that that's the wrong thing to do, okay, because that's not what our religion prescribes us to do.
No, but we're
So-
just acknowledging the fact
yeah,
that
yeah.
it does
People
happen.
people do live together. People do get to know each other. People then, when they get married, the woman in particular tends to feel that, okay, this person has married me because they're in love with me, and they then have huge expectations from that individual when they marry them. But then sometimes those expectations can't be met, and then that will end in a disaster as well. So it's about having that open mind, because the thing is, if you've lived with each other before marriage, and then after getting married, there's going to be additional expectations that that person's going to have on the individual, and sometimes they can't meet them. So marriages are difficult. Anybody and everybody who's been in a marriage will say that, because you have to accommodate this new person in your life, marriages can be very difficult. But learning how to navigate with the conflict and deal with unmet expectations, having good communication channels so that you know when to talk, how to talk, what tone to use, these are the
'Cause
important
nobody
things.
teaches you that.
Yeah, that's where my expertise come in, because this is, as a teacher, from my background has been in teaching in further education for over 30 years, identify that this is a skill that people can learn.
So
of
how do you assist with that?
Sorry?
How do you help in terms of coaching these people?
Yeah,
before
so
they
it's
marry?
it's about coaching, but also we have an application called
Yeah.
Love Connection, and
Yeah.
there's some coaching tools within that application, which people can do, like a self-help sort of thing, So there's assessments that they can learn about themselves, because a lot of the times it's you need to understand yourself. Who are you? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your points that trigger, maybe this dissatisfaction? Why are you, in that way? So understanding what your attachment style is.
That's amazing. I'll say something interesting. A couple of friends I know were looking to get married, and they said that the first thing in both instances the girls asked them was, do you have your own place? If you don't, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
So this concept that the guy has to have his own place, which I think this current economic climate could be quite a big ask now, in the sense that, what's wrong with going and living with an extended family?
I think what it is, this is absolutely true what you're saying. The majority of the girls do not want to go and live with the in-laws, because they've seen historically how it causes problems within in-laws, and they feel that they should have their own space, especially if he has brothers, because you mentioned that we're learning more about Deen, we're understanding more about the faith, and with people understanding that they don't need to be with a non-mahram, with the living under the same roof, they feel that they have entitled to have their own space, and
That's
therefore
perfectly acceptable.
the guy should be in a position where he's able to provide a roof over her house. It's not that she's going to have to wait until she's got 2 children and then he decides, okay, I need to now move out of the parents' home. But also, a lot of the girls feel that the guys are very much mommy's boys, and the responsibility when they're under the parents' roof is that mummy's going to be nurturing and looking after, and he's got no responsibility of bills.
Just avoiding the interfering mother-in-law.
Yeah, and also, he needs to be taking responsibility of her and the finances and everything. So he needs to be a man,
but
not a boy.
It's a lot more difficult now in this current climate where, I'm talking about cases where a girl's going in to marry someone where there's only a mother-in-law and a father-in-law. There is no brother-in-law, there is no sister-in-law.
Yeah.
She will still want her own place. And maybe they're burdening themselves by taking a property on rent or taking a big mortgage. But again, that's a separate conversation. It's their right. If they don't want to live with in-laws, then obviously there's nothing that the boy can do about that.
Yeah.
But it's good that they discussed that at the outset.
Yeah.
And one of the questions I wanted to ask is our old cultural caste system still at play?
With many people, yes, they are.
Really? This
Yes,
day and age, they're
yes.
still bothered about whether this is a Raja, Chaudhry.
Yeah, absolutely. Many people still have that mindset. They won't get married to anybody who is not belonging to their caste. They have that demand that we're Rajput and we need somebody who's Rajput. And they're just making their chances, they're limiting their own chances, really. Some people with education and, they realize that this is a man-made thing, this caste system,
Yes,
and
it
they're
is.
moving
It
away.
is.
And they're moving away from this, notion. But some people are very strong on it. They have that chip on their shoulder that we're so-and-so and we belong to so-and-so family. And therefore we can't have, somebody who's going to come into our family that's not of the same level, I don't know, that's their mindset, that's the way they think. But yeah, that's definitely still around, but it's about educating people to say that, that's not going to qualify, that's not going to make a marriage successful. If they're, of a particular caste, there's other things that they need to consider what are going to make their marriage successful.
Something else you mentioned very interesting a short while ago, which I want to touch upon, is the mummy's boys.
Yeah.
Right. And I've got actually somebody coming later on this week to talk about this issue, about the masculinity crisis that we have amongst our youth. So I'm also finding a lot of the men, because I interact more with the youngsters, and they're less inclined to want to take on responsibility and get married.
Yeah.
There may be, may Allah forgive them, there's a lot of them that probably are in these boyfriend-girlfriend situations. They're dating illegal haram relationships, but they do not want to take on that commitment of a marriage. They think it's too much of a baggage or problem to deal with. But that comes down to not manning up and, becoming a man the way, as as Allah has created you to be able to take care of a family, take care of a wife, take charge of your responsibilities.
Yeah.
So are you finding that in the men as well?
100%, yeah. I think a lot of women are bringing up their sons not to become men, not to become husbands, but just to become...
So you're blaming the women?
Some are definitely in that way, so they need to be looking at who are they bringing up, how is he going to be as a husband. A lot of men don't want to take responsibility.
But in what way are they spoiling, or should I say ruining their own sons to stop them from becoming a man?
So, if they're allowing them to sort of like go out and date and, meet women and have relationships with them, a lot of mothers know about this. They talk to their parents, they talk to their mothers about it, that I've got a girlfriend and she's so-and-so. They even get them to meet their mothers at times as well. So the mothers automatically should know that that's something what my son is doing is haram. But because they've perhaps been born and brought up here themselves, so they have quite a Western sort of mindset themselves. Okay. Also, when knowing that most girls are going to want to have their own place. They might be encouraging them not to buy a house because they want to keep them at home. They want somebody who's going to be there to look after them while they get old. That's a cultural sort of thing as well. They don't want to be going into nursing homes. So they're saying, well, if you move out, then, you know, who's going to look after us when we're older? But also the financial support that they would get maybe if the son was at home means that they won't be getting that as well, because he'll be then sort of maintaining his own house. So there's a lot of issues in terms of like where the parents are responsible for the way that you know, the boys are. And it's their comfort. For the boys, it's their comfort zone. They think, well, why do I need to be taken?
Why take a responsibility when you get everything
and they think, you know,
provided?
if I need a woman, I can get a woman. I can just go on to an application and meet somebody and link up with that person, and then, you know, make a connection with them, and I can have a relationship, and I don't need to take the full responsibility of a wife and children and everything. And then, you know, you have marriages where people are married and then they've ended the marriage and they've got children, and they say it's the biggest mistake that I made was having children. You know, I've had guys that have come to me, they're divorced and they've got children. They've said that was the biggest mistake. But I was saying, well, you're coming to me to find a new relationship. They're saying, yeah, but we're going to have certain rules that are going to be put in place now.
Like what?
Like not having any children. So
That's
who's going to
terrible.
who's going to marry you that doesn't want any children? You know, so we do get that. We also have this whole issue where the men are coming and saying that we want to get married, but we want to have a 50-50 rule. And when I say, what's the 50? Oh, she has to pay 50% of everything. She has to pay the bills. She has to pay for, you know, the food. She has to pay everything that, you know, I pay for, she has to pay for as well. So I say to them, well, how is that Islamic? You know, and why would a woman want to marry you if you're not going to have any children with her? So already these guys are, in some
Talking
way,
themselves out of a relationship.
yeah. I mean, they prefer not to have a relationship, but they know that they can't, you know, go and show their girlfriends to everybody that here's our girlfriend. And, you know, the parents are saying do it in an Islamic way. But if they want to marry their girlfriends, and then that's fine, you know, that's their choice. But maybe the girlfriend wants to have children as well. You know, and maybe she doesn't accept that she's got the burden of paying things. And some people, not even the 50%, if you're the higher earner, then you should be paying for everything.
But it seems both have got high expectations, and both the boys and the girls.
Yeah.
So who would you say has higher expectations?
I'd say both, but I think the girls are thinking differently now from what it used to be, and the boys. I mean, I've just mentioned, you know, the way they're thinking. Men don't think like that. You know, men want to be the rulers. They want to take the lead. So these are like, okay, I'll take a back seat, and you can do half of it, and I can do half of it, and I don't really want to be taking responsibility. And some guys are great, and some girls are great, you know, and they're very serious about marriage. I'm just talking about, I'd say, a good 70 to 80% of them are thinking in this way. And some girls are really, really, you know, want to get married. They want to settle down. They want to find a good guy who they can get married to. But they come to me saying that, unfortunately, everybody that they've come across so far has not been a man, and, you know, not been the person that they're looking for.
I remember my wife sharing a story with me that she was trying to or fix somebody up who was a female professional, 35 years old. And even at that age, she seemed to have become very fussy, still having high expectations. What would you say to somebody who's not married, age 35? Should they still be having those high expectations?
Not really, because they're only going to make things very difficult for themselves. So if they can bring down their expectations, they'll increase their chances of meeting someone that they can get married to, because time is such a thing that, you know, it just keeps ticking. Yes, people have to be satisfied and they have to be meeting their expectations, but sometimes by doing that, you're only making life difficult for yourself. If you want to get married, if you're serious about marriage, what we should be looking at is what our deen teaches us, what things we should be looking for within our deen, and basically just leaving things in Allah's hands, because unfortunately, the divorce thing is now becoming
high.
more and more acceptable. Back in the days when somebody used to get divorced, it was really frowned upon, and there must be something wrong with that person, and why has this happened? But these days we're seeing it's become quite a common thing, and for our children and grandchildren, because of the way the social media and their the technology and everything's having great influences, that you can see the tantrums that they have, their tolerance of things. It's just very different to the way we were brought up. So for them, a small thing can just lead to a divorce. A small minor thing might be a reason for them to divorce. Do you understand? Yes.
So people's tolerance, again, it shows the lack of understanding, the lack of purpose. Maybe they're very distant from religion, Quran, Sunnah, in relation to why have we got together. If it was just for this worldly benefit of having a good time and achieving worldly success, then even a slight sort of shortfall in your spouse is going to be a big issue for you. I mean, our religion teaches you tolerance. It teaches you forbearance.
Absolutely,
That's not to say you have to put up with an abusive relationship or anything like that. But we need to, look over each other's faults to some extent.
Of course,
And now it seems that people don't have that level of tolerance. What's your advice to the parents who are looking for a spouse for their children? Surely, I mean, they can play a bigger role in being able to fulfill this task.
Yeah, parents are there as a guidance for their children, okay, but also about teaching their child of what what's going to follow after marriage as well. So teaching them to be tolerant, not saying that, okay, I want my daughter to get married, but I want you to find her a match within this area. And if you ask them why, well, because if she has problems, she can come back home. When my mother and my grandmother always told me these stories, that when they got married, then their brothers and their fathers said that we're getting you married, and now you're going to belong to that house, and you need to make your marriage work. No matter what, you need to make your marriage work. You can come back to home, but come back in a happy way. We don't want you to see you coming back, upset or saying that I've got problems at home. Okay, so this was like a message for them to say that when you get married, no matter what ups and downs you're going to have to make it work. Yeah. These days, parents are saying that, okay, if you have problems, you can come back home. We've got the door open for you. That's not really a good message. It's a message, maybe a better message would be, look, there will be ups and downs, as long as it's not abusive, as long as you don't feel suffocated or anything like that. We're here to talk to you, but that is going to become your new home now, So guidance from parents is really important. And I think just understanding your own child, understanding their own faults as well, and maybe pointing them out that, look, these are the things that maybe might become an issue for you when you get married. So maybe these behaviors or these ways that this thing that, you have, maybe you need to change that to make your marriage successful. Because most parents know where their own children's weaknesses are. And you can identify them and tell them that, look, we love you, we know that we want you to have a successful life, but maybe these are areas that may cause some issues for you when you are married. So maybe you need to work on them to change that. Because we can change, through learning, through doing things, we can adjust ourselves, we can change ourselves. And that's the guidance I feel parents need to be really giving to their children.
Very good advice. You obviously know that parents are always biased in favor of their own children.
Yeah, of course they are.
In a marital dispute, their child can never make a mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying everybody's
So
going to do that.
what parents also need to remember is that it's very easy for you to say to your daughter, say to your son, okay, just finish it with them, yeah? Maybe they're thinking about it and you're giving them the rubber stamp saying that, okay, yeah, that's fine, you can do it, yeah? Because, in our cultures, parents do play a big role, and I believe that that's still around now. I don't think people just get up, and if a family's been involved with the marriage, then the parents do have a say in the marriage, and they do
maybe
have
they encourage them to dissolve a marriage.
Yeah. So if parents can and just say that and think that, okay, if your daughter or your son does get a divorce, then how difficult was it for you to initially get that match for that child? Because it's a process that can take a few years at times, okay? And then after having the label of divorce, how easy do you think it's going to be for that child then to get married again? Because loneliness, they're going to want to have another partner. You know, they're not going to want to stay alone for the rest of their lives. So, but once someone's divorced, it was difficult enough getting them somebody while they were single, never married. So it becomes more difficult once a person is divorced.
Connected to that, one final question. Are there women out there who say, we don't want to get married, we're happy to be lonely, independent, and enjoying this freedom, and we just don't want to get married?
Yeah, we have many of them as well. But the parents are really,
Forcing
really
them.
struggling with that. You know, they say, please teach her something, tell her that she needs to get married. We want to see her with children. We want to see her settled. Her siblings are married and they're doing well. I had one client, well, potential client. She was going to become a client, but she wanted to explore the world. She wanted to go and teach in Qatar and, you know, in the Middle East sort of side. And the mother was really, because she was 30, 35, 36, I think she was getting on, you know, at that sort of age. And the mother was ringing me every day. She brought her to my office when I had an office on Stratford Road. She came there and she says, you know, I want you to talk to her. And I did, and she said, I don't really feel that I have the need to get married.
Really?
I'm enjoying my life. And why do we need to all get married? I don't need to. But that was her sort of thing. And
Yeah, but that's her at age 35, 36. Do you
Yeah.
think the same person would be full of regret when they're in their 60s and, you know, properly lonely with no family around them?
yeah, I'm sure there will be regrets later on, because loneliness is a killer. And we as humans, you know, the first relationship that was ever created was of husband and wife.
Yeah.
That was the first relationship, and we've been, you know, that's us. You know, we need a partner, we need a companion, and it doesn't matter. You know, within other communities, they get married even at the age of 60. You know, in Western cultures. But can you imagine that happening in our cultures? You know, as long you're a certain age and that's it.
After a certain day, you've passed the sell-by date. So.
That's it. You're not getting married. Then,
Oh, it's okay for the man. 80-year-old man can get married, but have you ever heard of a 70 or 80-year-old woman getting married
Yeah,
again?
but in other cultures they do that, don't they? In
Yeah.
other societies
Yes.
they do that. Yeah, it's because, you know, she doesn't want to feel lonely. I do have clients, you know, people contacting me that are 50 plus, you know, approaching nearly 60, saying that, you know, I lost my husband, he passed away, and, you know, I'm really feeling lonely. I really want to get married. My daughters are saying, why don't you find somebody to get married to? So it is changing slowly.
Final question. The previous one was the final question. That's something very interesting you just raised there.
Yeah.
Are you able to find a spouse for somebody who's in their a female who's in their late 50s or 60s?
Yeah, we have clients that are, you know, accepting women that are mature and maybe widowed, because they're probably in the same position as them.
Okay.
Because men can lose their wives, women can lose their husbands
I
through
just think that
divorce
a man-
or through
A
bereavement.
man may be wanting to traditionally a younger wife,
Yeah.
rather than having to marry somebody in their late 50s
Yeah,
and
yeah.
60s.
Yeah, but some men are quite decent, and they feel that they don't want to marry somebody who's the age of their daughter, you know, and they feel that they
Although
want
many do.
Sorry? Yes.
Although many do.
Many do. But some men don't want that. You know, they feel that they don't feel that they want to marry somebody who's their daughter's age. So, and then obviously a mature woman would be ideal for them. So these things are written from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, if they're meant to be, then they're meant to be. Obviously, we try to provide a service for all age groups. We're not, you know, sort of discriminating anybody or judging anybody that why do you want to get married. If somebody feels the need that they need a partner, then why not?
It's been a fascinating topic, and one that I've said that we can continue talking about, but time doesn't allow. You're exhibiting this weekend at the GPU, the Global Peace and Unity event in London XL.
I am, yes.
Yes, if anybody wants to find you, they can see you there on this Saturday, the 19th.
Yeah, so Saturday the 19th, we've got 2 sessions. So it's a family event. So it's family edition. So we've got one from 10:30 till 2. That will be from the age of 21 to 25. And then we have an afternoon one from 2:30. Registration will open until 6. And that's going to be from 26 to 30. And then Sunday afternoon from 2:30 till 6. So we've left the evenings so that people can go and enjoy the nasheed, because if they book a ticket with us, they'll get the conferences and the nasheed and the exhibition all included for free. So they can contact us, we can give them a promo code, and they can basically have weekend access 100% free for them.
Mashallah.
But obviously they will have to pay for the event. It is an aged event. And so this is the biggest one. We do events up and down the country, but the one in Excel, London, with the GPU is the biggest one so far that we've done.
I wish you all the
Alhamdulillah.
best. You're doing a great
Inshallah.
work. Without matchmakers, there'll be a lot of people left on the shelf and not married. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless your work, and
Ameen,
may
ameen.
you continue in successfully matching, the boys and girls out there.
Inshallah.
And inshallah, no doubt, we'll look forward to speaking to you again.
Inshallah. Thank you for having me.
Jazakallah for coming.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.